Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're talking about why is it so difficult to get into the comic book hobby. The inspiration from this video comes from a friend of mine who I play Magic the Gathering with. He said that he wanted to get into comics. He asked me that. So many questions ran through my head. It wasn't just a simple, what do you want to do? There was questions that I needed to ask him. And I thought, man, this is a harder question than it should be. It just seems like comic books are so difficult to get into. You go to the comic shop and you're overwhelmed. There's so many stories that span for such a long period of time. Comic books are not marketed well. They're not advertisements for comic books. Big social media platforms, big famous people don't promote comic books. This is not, if you're not in the scene, if you're not part of the hobby already, a lot of times it's just so difficult to get into it. Asking the question, how do I get into comics? The first things that came to my mind are, what do you want to read? What is your favorite stories? What's your favorite character? It wasn't, what do you want to invest in? What do you want to collect? That's honestly, the collecting is a secondary aspect to the reading to me, where it's like, what did you want to read? What stories interested you? That would be what, if somebody was getting into it, wanting to get into it, that's what I would push them towards, just from my experience of what kind of enjoyment I've gotten out of this hobby. So the first thing I always say when somebody wants to get into it, I always tell them my favorite stories, Watchmen, Preacher, Swamp Thing, Sandman, Walking Dead, Invincible. These stories, I tell them first that I think these are the best stories of all time, and especially somebody, for a new reader, find these books, read those. Well, I quickly realized that he wasn't wanting to do that per se. He was wanting to get into comic books in a different way. So he sent me some pictures of a slab, and it was this Hellboy Seed of Destruction #4 CGC 9.6 signed by Ron Perlman. Says, "I'll always look this good." So it was a Dark Horse Hellboy Mike Mignola issue. I don't think the issue had any significance, but it was signed by Ron Perlman, who we all know obviously played Hellboy in the original movies. And I thought that was cool. But the asking price was like $300. And he said, "Do you think that was a good buy?" And then I thought, man, for somebody getting into comics, and they see the CGC, you see the graded, you see the signature, and I'm like, I just question whether that book would stand the test of time value-wise that he's putting in, or is that something he really wants that he's going to look at and be like, oh man, I'm glad I bought that. So the first thing I asked him was, does this issue have significance to you? And he said, not really. And I was like, okay, so you're buying it because you like Hellboy and you wanted a Ron Perlman signature. So I said, honestly, a Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy, might be a better signature to have, because there's already been another Hellboy, David Harbour, and there might be more Hellboys in the future as far as actors. Mike Mignola is the character, or the creator. I would say go with him as a signature. So he sent me this, a Hellboy Seed of Destruction CGC signed 9.4 by Mike Mignola and Art Adams. And I was like, yeah, that's a better book, but for that kind of money, you could buy the first appearance of Hellboy. So I sent him the first color appearance, John Byrne's Next Men 21, CGC 9.6, white pages, for like $185. And then the first real appearance is San Diego Comic-Con #2, CGC 9.4, first appearance of Hellboy in a 9.4. And I think that was $295. It just got me thinking, like, man, he was about to spend a lot of money on something that might not necessarily have been what he really wanted, a great investment, something that he looked back on, because obviously he loves Hellboy, but he didn't know where to start. And I think that happens more often than it doesn't. You find a favorite character, you find a favorite story. More than likely, a lot of people have seen the movies, and then it's like, okay, now I'm going to get a Hellboy book. But which Hellboy book do I get? Where do I even start? What do I even do? How can you know that not only was this not the right necessarily book, but it's like, how would you even know the first appearance? Like that, just that nugget of like, that is the key issue. That is the most important Hellboy book because it was the first Hellboy book. The next thing he sent me, which kind of is the second point of this, is he sent me this X-Men Adventures #1 newsstand. He said he was thinking about picking this up for $65. And obviously the X-Men stuff is super hot right now because of X-Men 97, Wolverine's coming back with the Logan and or the Wolverine and Deadpool movie. It's, now is not necessarily the time to be buying X-Men keys. If you don't have your finger on the pulse of the comic book market, you're just getting into this, boom, you have 2021 again, and you have people buying things, overpaying for things just like they did then. This X-Men Adventures 1 is a dollar. I mean, this can be found in a dollar bin, or at a very minimum, or like a $5 bin. I just told him, I said, yeah, it's a cool book, but you got to look at it like this. This is not a first appearance. This is not like a major event. This is, another X-Men story. And it's cool because it's based on the X-Men cartoon, but it's like, if you're somebody that has a limited amount of money to spend on comics and you're wanting more bang for your buck, $65, you could get like a Silver Age book. You could get like even a decent first appearance for this. And I told him, I said, your money, do what you want, but it's just not the right time to buy this book specifically. It's a great time to buy comics in general right now, but not this book right now. And somebody new getting into the hobby, they would assume that is the price. That's how much that book is worth. That's a book that it's a $65 book, and then 6 months down the road, it's a $15 book. And it's just, that gets people out of the hobby. This type of stuff, this price gouging, this selling when hot, these are the bumps, the lumps that you take to become part of the comic book community, unfortunately. Another example of this he was talking about was he sent me the Secret Wars lot, and he started talking about speculation, the Secret Wars movie coming, and I'm like, yeah, and I mean that's true. It's just so far out. The price on this, I think it was like $650 for this lot. I'll have to double check that. It was a lot. Obviously, the big book in this is the Secret Wars 8 9.4 signed, which seemingly most of these Secret Wars are signed by Shooter and Beatty because Jim Shooter's like at every Comic-Con ever. This is a set that he had some nostalgia to. So there's a lot of people that are kind of estranged comic book collectors that came back into the hobby just recently. They're like, oh, I want to get my ASM 252. I want to get the Secret Wars. I want to get the stuff that, I had as a kid or I wanted as a kid. And I just told him, I said, I don't know. $650 for the set is not great. I mean, I personally sold a Secret Wars set for like $350 raw. And the Secret Wars 8 was like pretty nice. So I told him, I said, there's better deals. You have to shop around. You have to look. This was like a local collection, which is convenient, but it's just not something you want to do. So what he ended up getting was a few trade paperbacks, and he got The Watchmen, he got Batman Dark Knight Returns, and he finished up his Walking Dead compendium set. And I was like, dude, good choice. You spent $45, $80 on, as opposed to buying that $65 X-Men Adventures 1 single issue book, you got like some of the best stories of all time. You got something that you're going to be able to like enjoy, rekindle your love for comics, something that, you're actually going to be able to use and enjoy for a long period of time. And I think he made the right decision. I think many of you would probably say the same thing. This little story, these little anecdotes, these examples kind of show the thought process of a new collector the confusion that goes with that, the expectations they want from the hobby, what they want from the hobby. And I think as all of us that are part of the community, it's kind of our responsibility as stewards to not only help people getting in, because we definitely want more people in, but do it in such a way that is beneficial for them in the long run, things that I think they're going to get their most money's worth, get their most enjoyment of, get them hooked into it so that they really appreciate the hobby. I think it's our responsibility to do that. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If at any point in time you like this video, give the thumbs up. And if you like this video, subscribe for more. Take care.